Duke, you suck.
You shut your mouth!
Welcome to the Duke You Suck podcast. And now, Duke Durango.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Duke You Suck podcast. This is the special family Christmas edition. I'm here with my brothers, the Clarke boys, Kent Clarke, Dean Clarke. Welcome once again, boys, to the Duke You Suck podcast. I'm so glad to have you guys on. Thanks, man.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, man.
How are you? What's going on?
Well, Jordy, you already know how I am. I'm a little bit foggy today, a little bit groggy.
Yeah, people won't know, but there was Dean came over. We had a little bit of a Christmas cheer at our place last night, and Dean got into her. Dean and Ajax, they poured down a few beers.
A couple.
Yeah.
Oh, you weren't drinking scotch again, were you?
No, just beer.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. I offered the scotch, but they were afraid at that point.
You got to get your mind right first.
You gotta
You gotta get your mind right. Dean gave me this fine Wayne Gretzky's whiskey for my 49th birthday here a couple weeks ago, and I've been saving it, so I'm going to crack it open and have my first taste. I wanted to review it live, so to speak. So
There's product placement, right?
yeah, Wayne Gretzky's definitely sponsoring me. Yeah, I'm picking up hints of like boat gas,
Oak.
and paint thinner. Yeah.
The oak is the big one. That's what the paint thinner stored in, oak barrels.
You know what? It's not dog shit. It's not dog shit. It's not bad.
The Clarks have been known to drink worse to get a better drunk, but
Yeah, I'll drink floor cleaner if I think it'll get me there.
It's good with ginger. I know that.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Well, you could have warned me before I poured like a 4-ounce drink here.
Well, now you got time to sip on it.
what do you put ginger in it? Like slices of ginger or what?
Yeah, sure, Ken.
Or you mix it with ginger ale?
There you
Ginger
go.
ale.
Okay.
Yeah, sure can.
Would probably work actually.
You can't just say no ginger ale. He's got to chirp you first. Dick.
Oh boy. It's okay. It's all good.
Yeah. So are you really Superman? Like if I shot you, would you die? Or what's up with that mug? Or are you just false advertising?
Well, as you can tell, I'm not tall, dark, and handsome. I'm short, white, and Irish. But
But
anyway,
you wear glasses.
yeah, I do. That's about the only thing we have in common.
And you're old enough to remember phone booths. So
I can remember phone booths indeed.
The last time I got changed in a phone booth, I almost got arrested.
Yeah, I don't think you're supposed to just take your clothes off in there, Dean. It's not. Listen, stripping and changing are very different terms.
Well, I was trying to get a long distance call. You know what I'm saying?
Jesus. Yeah. So here's what I like about Dean. He acts all cool and tough, and then now he's drinking water. Like, I don't want to peer pressure you or anything, but come on, man. You knew this was coming for how long? Have we been trying to plan this? Like 6 weeks.
I know, man, but I'm just so thirsty today. Nothing else is cutting it. Orange juice is cutting it. Nothing.
Whiskey makes your mouth water.
That's true.
You'll feel less thirsty.
Do a nice Caesar. That balances everything. Put your feet back on the ground. Clears your head.
Hey, sorry. Excuse me.
I'm gonna have to edit that out. I hope you're happy. I have actually some garlic vodka. That,
Yeah, you were telling me about that.
that
last
makes
time.
a nice Caesar.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah,
That
it's
would
by a
be-
local brewery out of, I want to say Niski or Edmonton, called Rig Hand. Or a distillery, sorry, not a brewery.
We had a really nice. Lauren and I bought some. Have you guys had limoncello before?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, had some of that a couple of weeks ago. We bought it from one of the farmers markets. A fellow out here makes it, and it was really, really nice, delicious.
You're buying booze off people out at the farmer's market?
Yeah.
I believe we just call that moonshine, Kent.
Yeah. What's next? I need wine off the Hutterites.
What the fuck are you drinking, man?
It was really good. It was nice.
It's really good. Once the blackout wore off, I felt great.
Everything just went a little blurry.
Yeah. And he's the smart one.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, you don't see me buying booze at the state fair, you crazy bastard.
Maybe theoretically smart, but not very street smart sometimes.
You know what? And I hope nobody that was at this party watches my podcast, but we were at a friend's Christmas party here a couple weeks ago, and it had one of those white elephant gift exchange type things. And Wendy ended up with this really bullshit gift. And one of the aspects of the gift was somebody gave her a 6-pack of canned moonshine. And it was like lavender moonshine.
Oh,
my
that's
question.
good.
What I was just gonna ask. Thank you've answered my question. Who's drinking this shit?
I love lavender tea. I love lavender ice cream, and
Yeah, lavender bubble bath, lavender.
You roll
body
around in
lotions.
lavender too. Out in BC, you find a field full of lavender, roll in it like a dog rolls in shit.
You know that you can actually go visit lavender farms out here, and they're really good.
my
It's fun, man. It's really good.
Can't stop it.
It's like a little aromatherapy, boys.
Stop it.
Going to visit a lavender farm.
Oh, it's really good. Lauren took me there for my birthday this last July. It was good.
What did you do to her? That she did that to you, man?
Did she roll in the lavender with you?
Oh, sheesh.
Yeah, why would you ever give us that kind of ammunition?
Lavender's good. I'm okay with my.
I hope you know
my
for the rest of your
master-
life. You remember how we were little kids? All we'd ever buy dad was English leather cologne for Christmas. For
Yeah.
the rest of your life, all you're ever going to see from me is fucking lavender bath salts.
When you guys come out, I'm taking you to the lavender farm. You're
You're
gonna
sure
love it.
not.
Oh,
No,
yeah.
you're not.
No,
No, you are not.
I'm gonna buy you a nice lavender latte. It's beautiful.
I used
No.
to fuck right off with that.
Lavender latte. What's the matter with you? You're something else.
Oh, sheesh.
Jeez, you're something else.
Oh, it's gonna be one of those days. I
Farm.
think. It's good.
No, it's not. Stop it.
These things
And
out
here's the
there-
thing. I'm not saying it's good, bad, or indifferent. I've never heard anyone use the term lavender farm for starters. Never mind, I go there and enjoy it.
I don't even know what it looks like, Kent.
You guys are coming out this summer. I'm gonna take you. You're gonna love it. We'll
Listen,
have a nice meal out there. We'll have some nice lavender wine. It'll be good.
No.
I don't know, man. Lavender farm. Oh man, I hope I get some feedback. Hey, lavender farm people, get at me.
Hey, do they have English leather farms too, Kent?
I don't know. I haven't seen English leather for a long time.
There's probably a reason for it.
Do you
Old
remind
Spice
Kieran?
kinda remade itself though.
Do you remind Kieran of the time I wasn't there, so this isn't my story, but Wendy was out there for a little while. So I think she came for a week or two to stay with you guys. And her and Lauren took Kieran across the border for something. And there was, I want to say, a pig farm nearby that you drove by, and the smell was so bad that Kieran started crying.
He's my oldest son. That's how he was. He was very sensitive to things like that. Like it was just funny kid. growing up.
I remember when he told me like he's begging Lauren to roll down the window, and she's like, "It's just gonna be worse, buddy." Like,
I think
that's
he
funny.
came out to help Lauren when Jamie was first born or something for a week, didn't she?
yeah, like I can't remember the circumstance because I don't remember stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know she definitely. I remember she came out, and I was jealous because I couldn't come. I was working or whatever. But yeah, she came to help
Okay.
out for a week for something. Or
Enough
yeah,
lavender. Let's get into it. What are we talking about?
Lavender.
I thought I don't know what to do now. I think we peaked at lavender.
Where do you go from there?
there?
Straight down into the goddamn sewer. That's where.
You can edit any of that out if you like.
I'm sure not. I think that should be on your profile at the uni. Like Professor Kent D. Clarke loves
You guys-
translating scripture and lavender.
It's also there's some really good health benefits to it too, man. Like lavender tea, lavender ice cream, lavender. Oh, it's good.
Please extol the medical benefits of lavender on us.
It's supposed to be actually, if you kind of go to, well, the aromatherapy is obviously good for you. Kind of mellows you, relaxes you a little bit.
All I'm going to say, Kent, is the word aphrodisiac better factor in at some point here.
if it makes you feel mentally better, then you're better in the bedroom with your good wife as well. So it's all good.
Oh, and so that was smooth. That was smooth. I'll give you that. That was smooth. I'm guessing from Dean's expression, he ain't buying it.
I'll send you guys some for Christmas.
Please don't.
No. I'll send a return to sender.
COD too, so you have to pay postage to get it back.
You know
Right.
that there's culinary grade lavender too. Like you cook it with it in cakes, or you'll put it in I've seen lavender steak. It kind of puts a little bit of a tang on the steak. You're a barbecuer, Dino. You'd like that.
You know what I would probably like? Nothing with lavender.
Have you ever seen those memes where it's like, this is how you prepare something, and it's just a picture of them throwing it in the garbage? I would assume that's how you prepare a lavender steak.
Yeah.
Wait till you come out, man. We're doing the lavender tour.
The price of beef right now, I'm not ruining it with a goddamn flour.
You're telling me, right? We can't even afford chicken anymore. Sheesh. Anyway.
Are you going vegan? Is that what you just told us, Lavender?
No. No, I could never do that. Just couldn't do it.
Yeah. If God didn't want us to eat meat, he wouldn't have made it taste so good.
True story.
And easy to catch. It's not like
I was just
going
gonna
to
say,
catch.
and
Even I
easy to
could hunt a
catch.
cow.
Yeah.
I bet I could take down a cattle.
Maybe. I've seen some
Yeah.
pretty pissed off cows.
Well, you know, it's partly shameful to admit. Like, I mean, if something ever happens, if food supply ever dries up, like we are fucked, boys. Like, none of us are hunters, man.
But one of the things that's kind of happened when all the flooding took place and the transportation veins were closed, like the Coquihalla and the number 1 and the 3 for about a week there. Some of the grocery stores it was like apocalyptic walking through there, and the shelves are empty. We could only get $30 worth of gas at the pump each time because we were trying to conserve gas.
Right.
For essential needs like
$30. What's that out there, man? Like 2-3 liters? Enough to get you back home after getting gas?
sorry, not $30, 30 liters of gas.
I thought we were.
$100.
Yeah.
I thought Calgary.
Probably
Are,
about $60-$70.
Wow.
Gas is like 163, 169.
Okay. Yeah, it's 140. It's 140 here.
Is
yeah.
it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Which isn't good considering we fucking make it.
Yeah, actually that's expensive because on occasion we can find it here for 139,
Right.
but that's
I-
not common.
I go to the Sutina reservation. God bless you people, and thank you for that. Where you can get premium for $1.44.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah.
That's where I go fill up my truck too.
Is that right?
Yeah.
It's not taxed or?
I don't ask any questions, man. Sometimes it's
Yeah.
best. You like when a guy sells you something out of a white van, you don't ask questions, man. You just pay the guy the money and walk
Take the
away.
deal. Take the
Yeah.
deal and move along.
Yeah. Just assume you're not hurting anybody. Just walk away.
Jesus.
It's called convenient ethics, Kent.
Convenient ethics. Yeah, if you don't like these ethics, it's okay. I've got others.
Yeah. I see you've taken my course.
Yeah. Indeed.
Dean's like, what's an ethics?
Can you drink it?
Can you drink it?
Listen,
how
if
how
I
many
could, I
ounces in
would.
that shot? Yeah. As we chirp the guy who's drinking water for
Yeah, you're chirping the guy who likes lavender and saying nothing to the guy that's drinking water.
I'm trying to be healthy.
Well, put lavender in it.
No.
put lavender. I can just see him with a big purple stick in his water. Wouldn't that
Yeah.
look awesome?
Oh,
What spot did you pick this bullshit up at?
I'm telling you, we got to move on from the
There's no way. We got to dig into this more. How long have you been living on the West Coast now? Because I think it's too long.
No kidding.
I think it's time for you to come home, man.
Almost.
All that rain has moistened his brain.
Okay.
When we retire, I might have to come home. It's expensive out here, as you're saying.
Yeah. See, come home. And so on a serious note, though, so you guys had no effect from the flooding and stuff out there, right? Where you're at, other than sort of being inconvenienced by certain things.
Yeah, us personally, we didn't have any issues, but close friends of ours, one of their chicken farms was, I think, under 8 feet of water. They lost the whole first layer of they were layers, I think, or no, Yeah, they were layers. So they lost the whole first layer of the chicken barns goes up in layers.
Right.
And so the ones on the lower levels were killed. So
Oh, that's
yeah,
awful.
you just can't believe it. Like we walk on the dikes all the time, and the dikes are like 30 feet up off of the riverbank, which is still sometimes another 2 or 3, maybe 5 feet up. So like you're walking along there and seeing the pictures of that, you can't imagine how much water is there. Like literally there, some of these chicken barns were filled with 8 feet of water, like above the foundations. Like you just can't imagine how much water that is that
Yeah.
comes.
That's what do you expect though? Like when you build in a dry, like they pump out a lake and put farms there, man. You have to expect something's going to happen sometime.
Yeah, and it floods almost every year, but we have a pumping system at a place called Barrowtown that mitigates that. It pumps the water out of the floodplain into the Sumas River and then into the Fraser.
Unless it's overwhelmed.
Yeah, and in this case, this actually wasn't water from just the rains and the snow melt, though that obviously compounded the issue. But this was from a river south of the border that overflowed and then infiltrated our dikes on the other side, on the back sides of the dikes, and wore away 2 sections of it. So
it's the Americans' fault, really.
Dirty Americans.
There's been some interesting conversations about how to mitigate that, and some of the American responses, well, you're stupid Canadians for building in an old lake bed. So what do you want?
You know what we need to do? We need to build a wall and get them to pay for it.
Oh boy,
that was one of my favorite campaign things of all time. Like literally, like, anybody that bought that, like, Mexico is a country that can barely sustain itself, right? Like it's one of those countries that's pretty much on the brink of bankruptcy all the time. If it wasn't for tourism, it probably financially couldn't exist. And then you hear somebody like Donald Trump say, yeah, we're going to build a wall and Mexico is going to pay for it. It's like, are you fucking high when you make that statement? Like, and there's other people like, yeah, man, Mexico's going to pay for it. Like, you're higher than him, you dumbass.
Ridiculous.
I just don't. What concerns me, man, isn't people that vote for Trump, because you got to do what's best for your family. And I'm not going to go hard in the paint on people that make that decision. I'm more concerned, and this is somebody else's thought, not mine. I'm not concerned about the Trump voter. I'm concerned about the education system that creates the Trump voter. Right. Same as I'm concerned about the education system that creates a Trudeau voter, quite frankly.
Yeah, we're not.
But that education system is how they're teaching everything now. Everything's so liberal based, man. And see my cheap glasses.
Yeah. I'm okay with progressive, right? Like I'm okay with moving forward. But what's funny is this generation thinks they're so virtuous and they're, so progressive. And the next generation is going to look down on them for being, backwards. So it's going to be funny in 30 years when this generation is like, what do you mean we did our best?
I think sometimes we do the pendulum swing where we kind of overcompensate one way, and it's hard for us to find a middle road. Like I think one of the things that's happening now in the education system that's impacted us as a university is in middle school or junior high and high school, we're focusing on student-centered learning, or often it's called inquiry-based learning, where the student often dictates the terms of the learning and how they proceed through the curriculum. We did this back in the 1970s. We called it student-centered learning. We did it for about a decade and realized content actually matters. So I guess we better start teaching content again, and numeracy and literacy. So I think these things go in cycles, but you guys are right. Like it's interesting to see students today in the university context. There's definitely a difference even from my students 5 years ago. The students today are incredibly creative. They're incredibly artistic and they're incredibly bright, but they don't know how to write papers. Numeracy is more of an issue. I think literacy is more of an issue. So we're having to compensate as a post-secondary institution. I think many post-secondary institutions are having to compensate to deal with those shortfalls of it, right?
Right. I don't know. Sorry, go ahead, Diener.
I would have nothing to add.
The only thing I really have to add, and again, this isn't my own thought. I'm regurgitating someone else. I can't even remember who said it, but is that as a planet or as a human race, obviously we've never ever had more information at our fingertips. Do you know what I mean? Like, I never let any question go unanswered. Right? As soon as someone asks a question I don't know the answer to, I go on my phone, Google it, and get the answer instantly.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, as a species, also, I feel that we've never fucking been dumber. Right? Like, people just don't, because they're being told always, especially in school right now. And same when we were growing up, you're always being told what to think. And then you get into high school and hopefully post-secondary, and that's where you learn critical thinking. And that critical thinking isn't a thing anymore.
No, and you're right. It helps you determine what's an objective, peer-reviewed source that has good information versus what's kind of populist and not peer-reviewed and maybe is misleading. And I think we have a difficult time. And to be fair, part of that is just the wealth of information that we have. Like, we didn't grow up with the internet, right? So you listen to the specialists, you listen to the doctors or whatever the case is. But now, I think there's just so much information. How does anybody wade through that? Even for somebody who's a scholar and academic, we've become so specifically, we're not generalized anymore. We don't kind of focus on generalities. We've become so specialized that I know a whole lot about a very small area that doesn't really impact anybody. And so we kind of have this micro knowledge, but the macro knowledge, none of us really can have a handle.
Right. And then you get somebody like me who knows very little about a lot of things. So I know just enough to bring up the subject. And then once it gets deep, I'm like, uh-oh.
Yeah, but some of that is good, because then as a generalist, you can make connections sometimes across disciplines that a specialist might have a really difficult time doing, because we're so locked into the infinitesimal, right? Rather than into the broader base.
Right. Well, I find even, Dean was the warranty tech on our house when things were getting built. And you find, somebody that's a tradesman. So I do somewhat speak the language, but all of a sudden you find Dean's trying to talk to you about the technical shit about what's going on in your house. And you're kind of looking at him like, I think I know what you're saying, but I actually don't know what you're saying. So I'm going to need you to dumb that down for me. You know what I mean? And it's because, you say, we all have a specialty, and it's everything you get into is like speaking a different language.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And in the case of you, Dino, you actually have to know about how framing works. You have to know how drywall goes on. You have to know how the plumbing system works. So in some ways, you're a generalist who puts all of those elements together to make sure that the product is as stated and that it's a good product at the end of the day, right?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. I just have to go. I just got to go fix it when they fuck it up.
Yeah. What's better than fixing someone else's mistakes? That's my favorite. What's that, Dieter?
That I hate people.
I hate people. All right, Dean. Okay, let's talk about. Let's expand on that. Dean, tell us, why do you hate people so much?
I don't really hate people. I was just being a smart ass, but getting back to the whole, people are just, they're going to take this the wrong way. You're going to get, or I'm going to get roasted. They don't think for themselves anymore. Everybody expects people to have answers for them, right?
Yeah.
It's crazy, man. It's crazy to me how people will not research their own stuff or anything like that. Like, it blows me away. If there's something, you see it on, like, where we live, the community Facebook page. Hey, does anybody know how to change a tire? Or does anybody know how to do this? Anybody know? Like, man, look it up, dude. Like, do it yourself.
And the time it takes you to post something on Facebook, you can Google that shit.
Yeah,
Drives me crazy.
Yeah.
Like, if I don't know something, I'll learn how to do it.
Well, I used to get welders that would phone me and ask me like the maintenance information for the welding machine. And they'd ask me like how much oil, what kind of oil, what sort of filter do I use? What's the part number on the filter? And literally, and I'll use one particular machine, there's a hatch at the top of the machine where the engine's located, and the dipstick and everything you need to access is right there. When you open that hatch, there's a label stuck there that gives you all of that information.
Oh, yeah.
So they've opened that thing 100 times to check the oil or fill the oil or do whatever, but then they still have to phone somebody and ask, hey, what do I put in here? Like, what the fuck are you looking at when you open that hatch? Like, you're just sitting there like, and like, what do you get away from that machine?
That's actually something my kids have shown me. Like, they're like Jamie in particular, Kieran too, but they have no fear. They've never done these things before. They go YouTube it and they do it. So it's like they've turned me on to that. Like if there's something I need to do and I don't want to pay somebody to go do it or can't afford, I've been saved by YouTube so many times. Like it's pretty amazing. It's literally step by step, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
I've been
totally.
saved by YouTube, and that I watch those step by steps and think I better call the guy.
Like, I want to change the headlights, put really bright LEDs in my truck. So I YouTubed it, and it's like I got to take 12 bolts off and remove the grill to get to the headlights. It's like, no, I guess
yeah, man.
It's just staying.
We had a F-250 needed a headlight at work, and the whole front end of that truck was off to change a headlight.
Yeah.
My little Mitsubishi needed a headlight. I literally opened the hood, twisted a bulb out, pulled it out, new bulb, twist. Like it was seriously 2 minutes from start to finish.
Yeah, I did Karen's car today. She had a burnt out headlight. Same thing. Take the
And
rubber.
that, my friends, on the F-250 is intentional.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh, for sure it is.
Yeah.
it
Planned
is.
maintenance, right?
Yeah.
It's
Well-
going to be so inconvenienced that the thing is, if you're driving an F-250, chances are you're a reasonably handy person anyways, as funny as that sounds. So you could probably still deal with that if you're willing, but most people aren't willing. They'll just take it in for an oil change and say, can you do the headlight?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
$300 later for a headlight.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you're driving an F-250, you can probably afford it too. So
Well, you obviously hate gasoline.
No, you hate gasoline if you're driving a Tesla.
fair enough. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I think you just want to burn all of the fuel.
That's kind of another interesting issue. Like, I don't know where you guys stand on the environmental issue, but I'm kind of all for it in lots of ways. Again, lavender, West Coast, whatever.
Yeah.
But I find
Save a tree.
Yeah. Like 5 years ago, the average person is going out to buy, like the average working person is going out to buy a $30,000 car. That stretches you a little bit, but you put it on payments and you can do that. $30,000, $35,000.
Yeah, you're paying $500 a month.
Yeah, you got it right. Now what's going on is we're upping the game. So if we want to get into the electric vehicle kind of realm, there's nothing I'd really want to drive that isn't under $50,000. So now we're kind of stepping it up to $20,000 more of what I would spend. And I think environmentalism, I want to be it sincerely, but it's expensive. And so sometimes I get frustrated thinking that we've actually changed from an oil-based economy, and rather than actually being truly philanthropic about saving the world, about cutting down carbon emissions, all we've done is we've taken that capitalistic mind. And again, I'm not communist, I'm a capitalist, I'm a materialist, I'm a consumer, I admit that. But we've literally just taken an oil-based economy and turned it into big money environmentalism. And it's even more expensive. So the incentive for people is they can't afford to do this, even if they want to do it.
Well, there's a lot to unpack in that. So the first thing I think is, do most of us want to leave a better planet behind for our children? Of course we do. And I think that's a reasonable statement. The realistic, to your point, Kent, the technology isn't common enough right now that it's economic for the average person to buy it. What you're going to see, from what I've sort of seen and read, in the next 3 to 5 years, the big 3 auto manufacturers are going to be coming online with their electric vehicles. Now, once that technology becomes that common, hopefully the price of it then starts to come down and become reasonable. Because like you say, and even at that, under 50 grand, you're buying one of them Chevy Volts. Now, I don't know if you've seen one of those things, but I would not. You'd have a hard time giving me one of those things.
Yeah.
Right. So the second concern that people have to talk about is the strain on a power grid. The North American power grid, it was never designed to do what we wanted to do. So if all of a sudden everybody on your streets drive an electric car, you're not gonna be able to run your fucking furnaces at night. Do you know what I mean? So there's gonna have to be some give and take there.
Yeah.
And then the third thing, to your point, Kent, about wanting to be a good environmentalist is, what do we do with the batteries of these machines? What happens to, what about that part of the carbon footprint when that battery needs to be recycled? Can it be? Is it something you just bury in the ground and move on from? That's a question I don't have the answer to. And then the other thing is, what about mining for this battery stuff? Most of us have seen some pretty horrific images on the internet of these types of mines. I don't really know. I've never done research. I've never kind of looked into it, so I'm not going to say. But I think there's a few questions. I don't think when it comes to the realm of consumer and convenience, there's no victimless product.
Yeah, I agree. I guess, and I totally agree that there's a transition period where the technology has to become more prolific, easier to produce. I understand that, but I also think too that this isn't just a time for us to actually change our environmental structures or our energy structures. I think this is a time for us to actually change our philosophy on capitalism and truly become more generous, and to actually create systems where it isn't just an oil economy where the few rich get richer and the middle class shrinks and those in poverty become even more impoverished. I think it's a great example for us to actually change a philosophical system. And I'm not talking about communism or anything like that. I'm talking about a genuine capitalism that actually creates opportunities for everybody, right? I don't know what that looks like. I'm not a politician, I'm a theologian. So that's my ethic. Whether that can actually be realized practically in our political system.
I think it could be. I just don't think they want it to be.
Yeah. And I think there's truth to that, right? The other thing is you can look at a guy like Elon Musk and say, how much money is enough? Literally, how much is enough, right?
Well, and that's always the question
Bezos.
I have is where is the tipping point between taxation and where taxation becomes a de-incentive to innovation, if that's in a sentence that makes sense.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like because like you say, I don't think necessarily if a guy has $200 billion, you've won. Like you could literally keep 2 of those billion, live a lavish lifestyle forever just off the interest that's going to make for you. But I also think that I want Elon Musk to keep innovating. So whether that's the financial incentive for him, I don't know, but I don't know how to find the balance between taking Elon Musk's money away and preventing him from innovating.
Yeah. And in that case, I'm saying the capitalist system's not going to take away his money, but I wonder what percentage of his income, and this is not for me to judge, but I'm curious what percentage of his income goes towards philanthropic things, and maybe a significant portion of it does. But I just know that in the corporate structures that are around us, what is it, 4 or 5 companies that basically outperform and make more money than some of the global banking systems now, right?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, again, like it just comes down to, I always look at things like, for instance, maybe I'm a dick, but excuse me. When I roll through the Walmart till and ask me to give $1 to the Children's Miracle Network, it's not that I'm opposed to the Children's Miracle Network. It's that I know when I give that $1, $2, or $5 to Walmart, which I can easily afford, that they get a big tax write-off for it as a corporation. Do you know what I mean? So there's that part of me. It's like, no, because you take my money, present it to the community, act like you've done something good, and then get a huge write-off on your already massive profits. So they give that money to charity. It doesn't actually hurt them one bit. Plus they're doubling down because they get a big tax receipt for it. Having said that, if I'm really trying to do good just to do good, why does that side of the coin matter? I should just give my $5 and be happy that somehow that $5 is trying to go to that, Children's Miracle Network. So there's, I have a hard time with some of that, but at the same time, sometimes like, at least the money's getting there.
My question is how much of that $5 is getting there?
Yeah, at the end of the day, you're right.
Yeah.
There are studies that show different organizations are able to actually give more to the actual cause than others. Right?
Yeah, I've heard the number as low as 10% for some charities and whatnot. And I'm not going to get into which ones because I don't care to get sued. But yeah, I've heard some things where 90% of your money goes to kind of covering costs and overhead, and about 10% actually does the charitable work.
I've read that too.
Yeah. So, but again, I mean, I don't know. Here's the other thing. It's the same with on my way home, there's a particular intersection I drive by, and there's a particular homeless guy that's drive that intersection consistently. And I will always kind of give that guy money. And I get people to say, why don't you give him food? Why don't you give him this? Why don't you give him that? First of all, keep your lips off my giving. What I do from my heart is up to me. So just mind your own business. The second thing is, I know whether I'm giving to him, whether I'm giving to the Red Cross, whether I'm giving to the Salvation Army, Children's Miracle Network, Foster Parents Plan, any of these things, I'm giving with good intentions. What they do on their end isn't on my conscience. Do I need to do the research now? Is it easier to find out which are the good charities? Much. People, please do your research if you choose to give. But again, I choose to give based on my conscience.
Yeah, I've heard that as well too. I feel that it becomes difficult sometimes I feel like the ethics of that, I don't disagree with you that it's not really my choice to determine how somebody spends the gift that I give them if it's a homeless person. But
Yeah.
Hopefully,
Do I
they
want
buy
that homeless
food or-
person to spend that money on drugs? I don't. But if it could get him a warm place for the night or somehow a warm meal, man, I don't mind throwing down that 5, 10, 20 bucks if I got it.
Mhm.
yeah, for sure.
Right. Like I have a friend says, oh, I keep granola bars in my car. Yeah, great. So you just gave the guy fucking broken teeth and dry mouth. I'm sure he's happy with that.
Yeah.
Especially in the middle of winter.
Yeah.
It's been in my cold car all day. Enjoy.
Yeah. Here's a rock to chew on.
Yeah.
I admit too that I'm conflicted on that issue of homelessness. We obviously, being a little bit warmer climate here on the West Coast, we have pretty serious homeless issues, and especially where we live in Abbotsford, it's got a long history of homelessness, and the political system hasn't always interacted well with that homeless system.
Right.
But
Well,
yeah, so I feel conflicted of how are we enabling by the programs that we do, or how do we not enable, and how do we actually see true change? But like you, Jordan, I think at the end of the day, I haven't always had a very positive attitude towards homelessness.
Right.
I think part of that's probably some of our upbringing as well, where, you know what, there's times where we probably could have taken that road as well.
Well, a couple bad choices, man. I look back when
Yeah.
Dean and I were kind of 18, 19, 20 years old, and yeah, we were a couple bad choices away from homeless for sure, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was, I don't know if I can advertise or not, but there's a just 45-minute program on the homelessness crisis in places like Seattle and Portland and LA. And I watched that a couple weeks ago, and it kind of started to change my mentality a little bit. And you know what? I give money to homeless people. I've bought meals for people and sat with them and done that as a Christian charity or as a Christian duty. Sometimes I haven't always done it with the right heart. And I guess my frustration is, for me to, is giving my money the right thing to do, or is actually becoming involved in that person's life the right thing to do, where I actually am able to speak into their life and make impact? And I don't know what that looks like. I don't know how to do it necessarily. Sometimes I think I give money or buy a meal to ease my guilty conscience or to ease my privilege. And I think, how can I speak more readily into that person's life or help make true change come about? Right. I don't know. It's a hard question.
Well, I think, first of all, don't take this the wrong way, but never assume that person wants that from you.
Yeah, it's true.
You know, I think that's important. Like it's, sometimes we look at somebody's existence, and I'll use like a hermit, for instance, people that live off the grid. Quite frankly, I look at that and say, that is a miserable existence. Do you know what I mean? You're fighting for water every day. You have no power, no electricity, no outdoor plumbing. For me, that's horrible. But for some people, that's exactly what they want. And
Yeah.
one of the reasons I think the homelessness problem is exploding is this system doesn't work for everybody.
Yeah.
You know, and there's in the early 80s when they stopped treating mental health in the same fashion that they treat physical health, I think that's created a lot of the issues we have now. I went to Seattle in 2019 and I was fucking shocked with the homeless situation there. Like anywhere there's a place that there can be a tent set up in and around Seattle, there's a tent set up.
San
It was
Francisco,
shocking.
same thing.
What's that, Dean? Sorry?
San Francisco, same thing, man. Downtown San Francisco is crazy.
Is that right? Hey.
Yeah.
Well, so did you like describe kind of what you'd seen down there?
People with dogs, like living in cardboard boxes and stuff like that. Begging on every street, literally every street corner, man, all day, every day. And you at night you'd crawl into their little box type thing and go to sleep. This one fellow and his dog, he'd be up 6 o'clock in the morning again, out there in front of the Starbucks, right in Union. What is it? Union Square, I think it was. Yeah. So
So he's got a routine, obviously. Do you know what I mean? Like it's people say, oh, it's a lack of routine. It's not, that guy's obviously got a routine. Yeah, that's interesting to me. Like one of the more interesting things I did when I lived in Kelowna there was I volunteered for the year I was out there at the Kelowna Gospel Mission, right? That fed homeless people. And so you'd see people come in with, at first, I was definitely somebody that was, looked down on homeless people, was lazy or, just didn't want to do anything. And then I started working at that volunteering to that gospel mission. And you'd see people come in there and realize like, oh no, these are people that are just, running from a bad situation or something in their life got out of control. And they just, 6 degrees of separation ended up here.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it is working too, right? Like people lose their house, especially the last couple of years, maybe. I don't know if this is the case, but with the COVID and you lose your job and you can't make your ends meet, and then you're still working, but you can't afford, you can't afford your rent, and then you're essentially working homeless.
And you end up, you're basically living in a vehicle, right?
Yeah.
And that's my frustration. How do we change that system? Because
Well,
in the West, we've always poo-pooed on communism, but in the West, I think we're seeing the brokenness of capitalism. It's not working, right?
Well, it's certainly not working for everybody.
Yeah.
no, it works for the rich.
Yeah. One of the
What
things
kind of drives me crazy is virtue signaling from political leaders. For example, our mayor, she was pissed off because they tore down a homeless encampment, a bunch of tents and tarps over it outside of the drop-in centers. They said it was unsafe, so the peace officer went in and tore it down. And then you guys have probably heard this: the Muslim teacher in Quebec.
it got canned.
Yeah, she got canned. So now our new mayor, she says she's going to throw $100,000 towards that legal case, or to help her. What could that $100,000 do for those homeless? The encampment that you guys tore down.
Well, my first statement is there's 1 million people in this city, so a dime of that is each of our monies.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. So she can't. To me, you can't just go give $100,000 of our money away on a fucking whim.
I know,
right?
Yeah.
Do I agree with that Quebec law? I don't. Fuck Quebec. It's the only place where literally racism is allowed to fucking exist in Canada. Like, and I'm not saying racism doesn't exist. I'm saying it's literally allowed. There's a 2-tiered system for English and French in Quebec. And if you don't recognize that, you can go fuck yourself.
Sure, man. And then you can't wear any religious symbol if you're a public servant.
But you know what, man? I'm okay with that because I'm kind of okay with the separation of church and state. Like I'm not.
Yeah, I get it too, but you can't, fire people for it. Which I think that's a crazy law.
Well, I mean, I think it comes down to this. What are we viewing as a religious symbol? For instance, sometimes ladies are outside and it's windy, so they put a scarf over their head. By definition, that could be a hijab for anybody.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If some woman shows up and she's wearing a cross, is that actually a religious symbol or a fashion statement? So now you got to start questioning people's intention behind what they're wearing. And that's where this becomes a really slippery slope for me. Mm-hmm. Right? Like it's, if you think that, my question is, does that religious symbol affect that person's ability to be a good educator? Because that's all I care about.
Yeah.
The other thing, and people will go fucking crazy when I tell them this. One of the things that was probably the best course I ever took when I was in college was a world religions course, where you learn about all of the religions of the world. And it's not focused on one. None of them are good. None of them are bad. It's just, this is what they think. 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 These are the basic tenements. If you want to learn more, do some research. That was a really good thing because it gave you somewhat of an idea. And I think in our public education system, going to my statement, separation of church and state, people don't want their kids to learn religion in public schools. And I appreciate that. But I also think it should be taught the same as science so people understand it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
We have science. Here's the thing. People want to get on us about, people talk shit about the Bible, and I don't get too stirred up about it. But one thing I always tell them is, trust me, I know a fuck of a lot more about science than you know about the Bible.
Yeah. And to be honest with you, I mean, the new atheism is pretty much a religious stance as well. It's a secularist religious stance, but don't tell me it's not religion. There's fundamentalism there as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
So.
Well, the one argument I've always made, and again, I don't know where I heard this or if I formulated it, because I've had this thought for years and years and years and years, is I don't care whether none of us were there at the Big Bang, right? So the Bible says that God spoke into the nothingness and said, let there be light, and there was light. And that was the beginning, he formed the heavens and the earth. To the evolutionist or the scientist, there was a Big Bang and that created from nothing. That just, there was so much, it's mass the size of a pinhead, so dense that it exploded and created the universe. Okay. I'm not going to debate either of those points. All I'm going to say is nobody was there to see it. There's no way to scientifically prove either of these things. Both of them are intangible. So whether you believe solely in science or whether you want to believe solely in, a Judeo-Christian or Muslim God, all of those are a leap of faith.
Yeah, and that leap of faith requires a humility. doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's not a certainty. It requires a humility. And it's interesting because I often think that we're listening to scientific narratives that often come from hardcore atheists or humanists that don't have room for that step of faith. But there's so many scientists, whether they're Christian or whether they're secular, that actually admit that science is based on theory, it's theoretical, and that good science always comes back and questions itself. That's how we progress. Science has
100%.
changed, right?
That's what science is to me, is constantly question what the hypothesis is.
Absolutely. And as soon as you start making hypotheses that are unquestionable, that's problematic. Don't get me wrong, science is good. We can shoot a rocket from point A to point B and bring it back. That's good science, but it isn't perfect science, and we can do it better as we kind of want to go further distances or as we want to explore more. Science always has to come back and question itself. And to be fair, I actually think that's true of religion as well, that it has to come back and question itself. There has to be an accountability. If there's no accountability, we end up with messed up religion. We end up with messed up faith, right?
Diener, you look like you had a thought there.
Yeah, that's above my head. That's what I was going to say.
Come on.
No, bro. You live this out. This is not above your head.
Yeah. No, it's anyways. Yes, there has to be a marriage of science and faith, I think.
Yeah.
At least that's how I live my life.
I agree. And I think in some Christian contexts, well, in some secular contexts, we think that faith and science can't work well together, but that's primarily because you don't understand that science actually has, again, a scientist isn't going to say it's faith-based, it's theoretical-based, but whatever, we're talking about semantics there. And then it's problematic when our faith or our religious perspective becomes so firm and so absolutely knowledgeable that there can't be questions to it. That's probably, I think that's fundamentalism. And there's fundamentalism both in conservative Christianity and in liberal Christianity. We make these absolute statements that's not to say there isn't absolute truth, though that's an interesting question in and of itself. What can we know and what's absolutely certain? But the human mind that's one of our great dilemmas, is we can't determine what's absolute and what isn't absolute, right?
Well, the only absolute is there are no absolutes.
Yeah, and even that's an absolute statement, which might be true.
You're absolutely talking in circles.
Yeah.
Well, and unfortunately, that's what a lot of philosophy can be, right? It's just people sitting around talking shit, pontificating.
Yeah.
Something that I heard the other day that was really interesting, and this will make your fucking ears bleed if nothing will, Diener. If you want to talk boredom, I was listening to a guy talk about science, and his idea was, it wasn't his idea. Apparently, if you look into this, which I haven't, Galileo, I'm going to get this wrong, but essentially Galileo was the scientist that made it so you removed consciousness from science, in that he reduced, so because there's certain things you look at in science or you look at in nature that's thought to be, we'll just use biology as a general phrase, and you look and think, okay, that's an absolute. But then you start thinking in your conscious mind, well, wait a second, there has to be more to that than I'm seeing, or there has to be less to that than I'm seeing. So mathematics don't lie. And that's the good thing about, that's the good science. Math doesn't lie. So he basically said we have to reduce science, or his school of thought was we reduce science to only the mathematics, to the things that don't lie. And it took the consciousness out of science, which I think was good because look where we are. But I also think there's some detriment to that.
Yeah, and I think I've not heard that argument applied to Galileo per se, but I've definitely heard it applied to Bacon and Descartes, right? Who Descartes' kind of perspective that we only think cognitively about things that we can know. What is it that we can know? Let's start there from this first principle. What can we know? And then the rationalism that comes forth from that. But I actually don't think that Descartes was a rationalist as we understand rationalism. I wonder if Cartesianism gets a bad rap because of its later development by Cartesians rather than Descartes, which is often the case, right?
You just lost us both, man.
Sorry. Basically,
Cartesian.
You might have to edit that out.
No, I'm sure.
I've never even heard of those people, man.
You've heard of Descartes. I think,
No, I haven't.
therefore I am, right?
Yeah, you've heard of Descartes, Diener.
You've heard it.
Therefore, I am fucking confused.
Yeah, Kent's like Bacon. I'm like, you mean like Kevin Bacon? Like fucking
That's what I was
Quicksilver?
thinking. Oh, ready to get footloose
Yeah,
over
I
here.
didn't know he was a footloose philosopher.
Modern science is kind of the idea that knowledge has to be put through some type of experimental process. That experimental process is often attributed to Descartes, or sorry, to Bacon, who was actually a Christian thinker. He was a profound Christian thinker. And so some Christians kind of talk about him as being the beginning of a soft rationalism. So the only thing that you can say is credible or that is knowledgeable is that which we can actually support through some type of experimental process. But there's lots of truths that we can't put.
I was gonna say, which would lead to ultimate atheism, right?
Yeah, right.
Because it's just, anyways. Diener, why are your Seahawks so shitty? Let's talk about that.
I don't have an answer for that either. There's got no offensive line. That the defensive coordinator, Ken Norton's a fucking idiot.
I'll tell you, you got faith if you're cheering for the Seahawks.
He's been a Seahawks fan since way before it was cool. Since Bosworth got drafted there in what, fucking 88, 89?
84,
84,
something
you
like that.
bastard.
Maybe 86,
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah. Dean's paid his dues as a Seahawks fan. So then they were winning. Boy, he was living. Then I looked the other day, they were like 3-6, and I just started laughing.
Yeah, they're horrible. They got no offensive line. Russell Wilson's getting killed. Their defensive coordinator is so punchy, puts tape on his own fingers like he's playing.
Anyway. So fuck the Seahawks right now is what you're saying?
No. I don't even watch football right now, man. It was on today, obviously. I never even watched it. I watch college ball before I watch pro ball right now. I don't know why. It's just
gross. How do you watch college ball? No one cares. It's like, okay, Dean, let's ask you this question. I'm going to put the heat on you. You're in the hot seat now, Diener. I'm getting lazy laying right back. I'm going to put my feet up soon. Fuck the NC2A. What do you want to do with that statement?
I think the NC2A is a fucking scam. They're right up there with the fucking Olympic Committee. The IOC.
I'll leave out the Catholic Church too, since we're coming from a faith-based conversation.
Here's my thought on the NC2A.
Yeah, hold on, dude. The only thing more corrupt in the Vatican is the fucking NCAA.
Yeah, I had a kid that I coached for, I want to say 4 or 5 years, and he went down to Michigan State, big defensive tackle. When he came back after his first spring camp, I was talking to him, and I said, "Well, let's go for lunch." He said, "I have to buy my lunch." I said, "Dave, I'll buy you lunch." Like, I can't accept it because it's boosting it, and I can get kicked out of school.
And even though you have zero affiliation with that school, that team,
Exactly. So
not to mention a pre-existing relationship with the player.
Exactly. So, but they're going to sell his jersey. They're going to sell his likeness. They're going to sell everything else and make money, and he's not going to see a red cent.
Yeah.
Fuck the NC2A.
Yeah, that's always my thing. And I was like, "Oh, we're giving him an education." Yeah, until he fucking blows his knees out and loses scholarship.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Right? Like that to me is something that shit should be guaranteed. I'll give them a little bit though this year. At least the NC2A kind of pulled back a little and said, "I think the players can now sell their own," which will pin a rose on them. But you as a player are now allowed to monetize your face and likeness.
Yeah. Another thing that, as far as sport goes, what I think the intent is there is the CHL, Canadian Hockey League, for major junior hockey. So if you go play in the Dub, for example, you play, I think, for 1 or 2 years, they give you a 3-year scholarship. But you have to use that scholarship money within the first year of your retirement or when you leave the Canadian Hockey League. Which, how many kids have lost that scholarship because they wanted to go try playing in Europe or whatever, right?
Yeah, I don't honestly didn't know there was a term limit on that. And what I'd heard is, for every year you play in the Dub, they'll fund a year your post-secondary. Right. But again, that comes back to, and you can call me a socialist for this, that shouldn't even be a thought. You know what I mean? Like, how is it a concern that you especially as Canadians, like, how do we penalize a kid for wanting to go play hockey and then make his post-secondary hard? Or how do we have a veteran that goes off to war and comes back and has to pay for university if he wants to go somehow?
Yeah.
Like, that to me should be one of the bigger socialist things you'll hear me say is that university should be free. And that takes away all of that scholarship bullshit.
Yep, totally. Yeah. But I mean, people complain about high taxes now. Imagine what it's like in Sweden or Norway, where I don't know if it is free over there, but from what I understand, a lot of those Scandinavian countries have free university.
A lot of European countries do.
Yeah.
A lot of them do. But that, I mean, I'd be much more willing to pay taxes if you came to me and said, okay, we're going to put a 1% tax on fuel and it's going to fund public education, post-secondary undergraduate studies. I'd be like, okay.
Yeah.
Right.
But
And I think most of us would, because it sounds like a lot, but in Canada, it probably wouldn't be much more than about $5 to $10 billion. Now that's a lot of money, but when you look at the entirety of the budget, that's not that much money.
No.
Right. Plus it, like you said, this is an old stat, but if a team made it to a bowl game, you made it to the Sugar Bowl in the States as a football team, instantly win or lose, that's $1 million for the program.
Yeah.
So that's $1 million for the university, right? Is that split amongst those players? No, right to the university.
Yeah.
Right to the university, you're getting coaches making $5, $6, $7 million a year as a university coach in the States. Like Nick
Are you
Saban.
serious?
Yeah, man. I think he's making $7 million a year. Something crazy like that. It could be wrong, but I know it's up there, man.
Yeah, those Div 1 programs generate millions and millions. And often the other thing people don't realize too is that oftentimes, like for instance, football program money will often fund a lot of the other programs at the university. Like for instance, on a lot of university, if it's not for the money made off the football program, and we as wrestlers should appreciate this, a lot of wrestling programs wouldn't exist because there wouldn't be the funding without the extra football money.
Yeah.
So there's some of that you got to consider too, I guess.
Yeah.
I was reading a story once. This is a little while ago. I think 2007. I went down and coached with our all-star team in St. Louis, the Bantam all-star team, over the Thanksgiving weekend down there. And I was reading a story about some Georgia high school. They just built a field house. I think it was like at the time, $10 million field house, and at 15,000 people or something like that.
Wow.
And that high school makes $1 million a year.
Wow.
$1 million a year off football alone. Never mind wrestling or volleyball or anything like
Off
that.
its high school football program.
In Georgia. Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
Unreal, man.
Wow.
So the boosters and all that other stuff. Crazy, man.
Yeah,
It's
advertising,
insane
sponsorships.
these days.
The
We
big
went
thing
to,
for me is the sales of the jerseys. If you're putting a kid's name on the back of a jersey and not giving him money for that, you're a piece of shit.
Yeah, totally.
Period. That should be that to me is, you cannot rape someone's name and likeness like that and just take that. And to me, it's like the stuff you hear about record companies. People sign bad contracts all the time. But if a kid sees a way out for his family to go get a scholarship at a Division I university to try and make it pro, he's going to sign that. No matter what rights he's signing away, he has to have that opportunity. And they prey on these young guys in the ghetto that'll do anything they can to get into those programs and bend to all those rules and all that bullshit.
Greed, right? Greed.
Well, for some guys, it's not even greed, it's opportunity. I think it's greed on the behalf of the institution.
Exactly.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, because the athletes, man, they just want to play. Like one thing I did know is there was a guy called Ray that came up here to wrestle, and he played basketball at West Virginia, and he blew his knee playing ball there. He lost a scholarship, but they did pay him. They did pay for the rehab of his knee, which is nice of them, I guess. But even he said if he had a problem with that knee, basically for the rest of his life, he could always go back to the university and they would take care of it for him. So he was up here wrestling, hurt his knee again, and then he said he was going home specifically because he got free rehab there.
Okay. Is
So
that when we were at the Hearts? That sounds vaguely familiar.
yeah, Big Ray. Remember Big Ray from West Virginia?
Vaguely, yeah.
Yeah, really nice guy. But yeah, so but at the same time, like you say, a university education isn't inexpensive, and I don't want to minimize that, but those universities are making millions off those kids.
Yeah. Unreal.
Yeah. So
what does the University of Michigan make off a football game? 100,000 people in the state.
Yeah, even if you're only charging $10 a ticket.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Kent, what's the math on that?
I'm a theologian. It's a lot of money.
I think it's
$100,000.
Yeah, and that's just
$100,000.
that's just your gate. That's not selling a University of Michigan hat or jersey or hoodie or whatever, right?
Yeah. And no booze at most college games too, like the big ones.
Yeah. So the gate would be, if they're going $10 a ticket, stupid us, the gate would be $1 million. 100,000 times 10 is $1 million. So the gate's $1 million. But like you say, how much beer are they selling? How much beer are you selling at a college football game? Some of them I don't think sell booze. Is that right?
Michigan doesn't. Yeah.
Is that
Big
right?
House doesn't sell booze.
Yeah, there you go. But when you're selling an $8 hot dog.
Yeah, totally. People are getting lit up in the tailgate.
Well, and it was probably the hot dog was probably donated by the sponsor. So it's just
Yeah.
pure profit.
Yeah, we tried to go to a Berkeley game, Cal Berkeley game. We were down in California a couple of years ago. Couldn't even get tickets, man. Like impossible.
Is that right? Hey,
Yeah, couldn't get a ticket.
that's insane.
See, like when we were down at USC for that coaching clinic, seeing that program up close and how they run it, man, it is like so far and away. It blew me away. Like just how they talked and stuff. I was just like, oh my God. And then I'd have to go home and research it to hear what they're figure out what they're talking about. It was unreal.
It's a straight up business.
Yeah.
Right.
Totally.
It's straight up like, the kids are a commodity. There's
Yep.
something to be bought, sold, traded, and
Yep.
used to make the university more money and get more sponsorship and more booster money.
Yeah, totally. And a big booster down there is US Army, man. How much money is the US Army putting into college athletics? Tons.
A fucking fortune. I read a thing a while ago that they never used to televise, and again, you old guys might know this. I'm way too young to remember, but they never used to show the national anthems on television. It was something that happened before the sporting event, but it was never something they showed. And then I can't remember the year, and I won't pretend to know, but the U.S. Army started sponsoring, particularly the tone of this conversation was NFL football, and was paying them advertising to show the planes flying over the stadiums and the national anthem before the game, and then with a U.S. Army thing. And it actually started as a sponsorship from the Army.
Wow.
Wow. Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
All I know is it's pretty easy to get Seahawks tickets right now, Dean.
Would love to go. I've been to 2 Niners games in San Francisco and Candlestick, but never a
Okay, well,
Seahawks game.
When you
That
come
was
out,
stiff.
if it's during football season, you can get actually bus packages that will take Vancouverites down to Seattle, and you can get a dinner, you get your transportation, you get your dinner, you get a drink, a beer, a hot dog, and you get a Seahawks ticket. I think it's like $35.
What I really, what I want to do is go down and maybe take in a baseball game or a hockey game and a football game.
Baseball games are easy to go to. We've been to a couple. It's fun. Yeah.
Oh,
And they're
that's
not,
hilarious.
they're not $35. Well, they might be nowadays, but I'm joking with it. Anyway.
Like if now is a perfect time to go. You got the Clarke and you could catch a Seahawks game too. That'd be cool.
I wonder if you could line it up so you could do a triple header. You could go see hockey, you could go see baseball, you could go see football.
Hockey might be preseason then because
Yeah.
baseball's playoffs in October. So and
Yeah.
that's almost either really early season or preseason.
When's
But
baseball
still.
start up again?
Who cares?
Well, the season starts like fucking April or May.
Yeah, I think they start
Spring training
down
starts in April, and in May
Oh.
the season starts.
Yeah, so
spring even.
you can get baseball and hockey. I don't think you could get football in there, could you?
In the spring?
Yeah.
No, probably not.
Yeah.
Football doesn't start until August, September, something like that.
That's a place we should go, boys. We should go to Seattle.
It's
I'd
an
go.
awesome city. Yeah.
Yeah, I like it there.
I've never been.
Yeah, we went once, and it was pretty slick, man.
Come stay with us. We'll do.
Why wouldn't we just go to Seattle? Why are you trying to make our life hard?
Yeah. Why would
Can't we
go to
just meet in
travel?
Seattle?
Another city too? I don't know if you guys like Portland. Portland's cool too.
Never
Portland,
been.
Oregon. I want to go to Oregon, and Portland, I heard, is like the craft beer capital of North America, essentially.
Well, apparently
Craft beer-
Antifa's taking it over, so you better watch yourself in Portland.
And food trucks, and
Yeah.
voodoo donuts. Oh, incredible.
I went to a place in Seattle called Biscuit Bitch, and it was breakfast sandwiches on giant tea biscuits.
Okay.
That shit was lined up around the block, and they were kind of known for like, yeah, and people were polite in there, but they weren't kissing your ass for being there. Like, there's
Yeah.
some feedback going on here. Sorry, boys.
No, you might have to edit.
No worries.
So it's
Oh,
kind
keep
of
going.
like you've probably done enough podcasts. Like, let's talk about that for a second. Like, do you get like the vibe that you guys had when you two did the interview? That was a good vibe. This vibe today is more laid back, more casual. Does that matter when you're putting something out there?
Not to me.
No.
Well, here's the thing, man. because that part always depends on who I'm talking to,
Right.
right? How chill you are to talk to makes it easier for me, or how well I know you has a big impact on that.
Yeah.
Right? Truth is this, man, as much as I appreciate anybody that watches this bullshit, anybody that gives even a flying crap for what I have to say, I appreciate. But at the same time, it's kind of one of those, if people aren't watching, I don't care. I'm doing this for me. I'm doing it like this is conversation. Truthfully, most people won't find this interesting. It's just three guys sitting around bullshitting.
Yeah,
but this is an opportunity. We wouldn't do this otherwise.
You got it. Right? It's the three brothers. So it's kind of funny because, I've not said anything that I'd have comments today that I'm not an expert on, that whatever, it's just my opinions like anybody else's opinions, right? But
well, and that's the thing. Like, if you want to try and hold our feet to the fire for three guys just kind of sitting around talking shit and having an opinion, do what you got to do. But I mean, yeah, you work at a university, so that could create some issues, but you can't cancel me. You have to, nobody gives a fuck who I am. Really and truly.
Really, what is this cancel culture bullshit anyway? Like, you can't speak your mind. You can't have an opinion, or else people are gonna fucking slay you on social media and label you as a bigot or fucking whatever, right? That's such bullshit, man. Whatever happened to free speech? As long as, free speech isn't necessarily free, I guess. You have to kind of watch what you're saying. You don't want to slander people and shit like that. But if we have an opinion about something, that's just our opinion, man. And you want to try to cancel me? Oh, fuck yourself.
Yeah. But
that's my opinion.
The problem with that is, I agree with you. I think that it's important for us to express our opinions. I teach in a university, and that's the context of the classroom, that opinions matter, and that when we reflect on different opinions, it can change us, it can challenge us. But I think what ends up happening is we use the term cancel culture to say that my hate speech should have a place to be heard, or my racism should have a place to be heard.
Yeah.
And Dean, you're totally right that freedom of speech comes with some responsibilities. And which of us actually has complete freedom of speech? We don't. We have laws that actually, I think, are good laws that talk about certain things that we shouldn't be talking about publicly, I guess, or our speech has to protect people. Like, there's all kinds of things that, so the idea of free speech is this ideal that I think some professors even at this institution get frustrated with academic freedoms. We call it academic freedoms. There's a responsibility with academic freedoms, and there isn't complete freedom. Which of us actually has complete freedom? None of us. When I drive down the road, I have to follow the speed limit. If I don't, I can get myself in trouble or get fined, right? So,
well, freedom, the one problem, first and foremost, in Canada, we don't fucking have freedom of speech. That's an American thing, and people need to understand. Canadians need to understand that part.
Yeah.
The second thing is freedom of speech doesn't guarantee freedom from consequence.
Exactly.
Right? Here's the thing. I don't always agree with what somebody has to say. In fact, that's a lot. I'm generally a pretty disagreeable guy. But at the same time, I will fight like hell for your right to say it, even if I disagree, because I don't want to live in an echo chamber. So sometimes somebody's going to say something horrific and offensive. And because we have the right to speak somewhat freely, that's going to happen. So if you want to maintain your right to maintain an open and honest opinion, and so we can have open and honest dialogue, freedom of thought or freedom of speech is a must.
Yeah.
But I don't agree with freedom of consequence for what you say.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, that my views do have consequences. What I say can impact people around me. It can impact people positively, but it can also impact people negatively, right?
Especially being an educator, right?
It's kind of interesting because I see this isn't youth culture. I think it's culture in general, where I see us becoming so focused on individuality and upon me. And so what is important isn't what we three have in common anymore. It's how I distinguish myself from you. What makes me more unique than you? What makes me more special?
What makes me more special?
Yeah. And I get special. that clearly lavender makes me different from you two.
So different.
So I respect that we want to differentiate ourselves in some ways. We want to be unique. We want to be special. But when that narrative becomes the dominant narrative, and we're not talking about what makes us communal, what makes us care for each other, when we talk about that collective good versus my personal good, I get frustrated with that. And I get particularly frustrated with that in conversations about COVID and about Christianity or faith and COVID, because the last thing I hear Jesus say is my rights, my freedoms, my privilege. Like those are just not phrases that are ever going to. So, in fact, I hear him talk about turn the other cheek. I hear him talk about what's better for my brother or sister. I hear him talk about look out for the weaker person and care for their needs. Those are things that I hear him talk about, right?
Well, I have a buddy at work who, definitely didn't live as a religious man. What faith he may or may not have had, I don't know. But the one thing he said to me very early on in COVID is he said, this is a situation where we are all our brother's keeper, which is straight up a biblical statement.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And it's the thing about rights is they come, to your point about freedom of speech, Ken. The right of having a freedom of speech comes with the responsibility and not to be a piece of shit with it. Yeah. And it's the same thing with you. Do you have a right to have an opinion on COVID? You do. Do you have a right to not get vaccinated? You do. But there's going to be consequences for those things. Whether I disagree with your stance doesn't matter. There's going to be, just like I chose to get vaccinated because I choose to want to go out to take my wife out to dinner. I choose to want to travel. I may have chosen to change my genetic structure so Bill Gates can track me around the world. I may have made that decision too, but I still live with that consequence.
Yeah.
I don't think I did, but.
And I think when you choose not to get vaccinated, that collective good has the right or the freedom to actually make some statements about that or to protect itself as the collective good. And as much as it bothers me, and there's an issue even in our family that we're not all vaccinated in our family.
Right.
So that makes choices difficult at times because it breaks our community. We can't always be together with each other, and that hurts. I don't like that, especially at Christmas time. I don't like the potentiality that, I guess that's where the maxim of COVID, like the health mandates are for the collective good, but I'm also empathetic to the person that decides they don't want to be vaccinated because they're marginalized and considered a second-class citizen. So I don't know how we balance that. That's frustrating.
No, you're 100% right. And that's, and the other thing too is
who says, well, I guess the government says, but who says you can't get together with your family because someone isn't vaccinated?
Well, in BC right now, they came out with new mandates earlier this week that basically we're not supposed to get together with family members that are unvaccinated. So that's hard for me because we've now literally formally separated families from families, and people will
create
say
a division within a family, which I certainly, and that's not the government's role.
Yeah, and
that's what the government wants. The government wants us fighting against each other.
We did this.
I'm just kidding.
Too.
Say, oh fuck, here we go.
We did this earlier before vaccinations, where we stayed isolated within our family unit. So when our kids came over, if they're living out on their own, we would have porch dinners where we were staying socially distanced and stuff like that. So we did it then too, but it just feels significantly different now that we're vaccinated and we're using vaccination to do that. And you know what? I understand the medical mandates. I actually get it. I teach at a university that if this thing gets out of hand and I bring COVID in, I could potentially harm hundreds of students and hundreds of other people. And that would be terrible to me. But so I feel stuck because I really don't know what the balance is. But if somebody chooses not to get vaccinated, they've chosen then not to go to public places, and that's part of their choice. And so there's consequences for those choices too, right? It's so hard. I hate that this divides us so much.
Well, the one thing where because this is for us, for guys our age, this is the first thing like this we've seen. I have a friend who's in her early 70s that has polio. And she still has surgeries that help her deal with polio. So here's somebody their entire life has been affected by polio, which is obviously something that has a vaccine. So the one question I asked when I was talking to her and her husband, who's in his 80s, when these vaccines came out, when the polio vaccine came out, or when, were these things mandatory? And they said 100% absolutely. So we're acting like this is a new thing, like this is the government just cracking down on us, and just, these bad governments, these Nazi governments we have right now in place. And for you people that want to call our government Nazis, can you fucking stop it? The Nazis killed 600 million people. They worked really fucking hard for that reputation. Don't just throw it around to any idiot that you disagree with. once you start mandating things, I have an inherent mistrust of the government. So as soon as you tell me I have to have a vaccine, I start getting concerned with that. That to me is one of my biggest problems with it. But the other thing is, you've been vaccinated for so many other things in your life.
Yeah.
Just because you saw something on YouTube or you live in an echo chamber where everybody agrees with you and your inherent mistrust of the government, which I also have, doesn't mean this isn't what's best for your health. Don't listen to the government. Don't listen to the guy on YouTube. Your family doctor doesn't have a dog in this fight. Listen to them.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I don't understand this. Like, I know more because I watched it on YouTube. You're a fucking idiot.
Yeah.
Yeah, everything on the internet is real, man. Always.
Yeah, like, well, and if you're not listening to somebody that doesn't have PhD behind their name and have some sort of like if you're not an epidemiologist and have some sort of recent clinical research that you can speak on. Like, I had a friend who sent me a link of a guy who was definitely, an anti-vaxxer. And so the first thing, I watched the video and I watched it with an open mind. And he described kind of how all vaccines work, but he also did, in fairness, describe how the holes in this vaccine can help create variants or help spread the variants we have today. So he was 100% right on that. So what I did after watching his video, because I didn't agree with most of what he said, but some of the stuff he said was factually correct. So then I Googled him, right? I didn't just listen to the video. I Googled who he was.
Yeah.
And when you look at his history, the guy was clearly anti-vax. So you have to watch. Now you have to listen to anything he says through that filter. And this is called critical thinking. So if I know already the guy comes from an anti-vax position, I have to listen to his agenda, whatever he's telling me, through that agenda filter. Then with a couple more Googles on a thing called DuckDuckGo, I find out that not only is he an anti-vaxxer, he's an investor in a company that's creating a COVID vaccine. So here's a guy on one hand saying, don't take these vaccines because the company he's invested in has one coming out later. Right?
Yeah.
So everything he says, and when I replied to my friend, like, hey, why don't you view this now? Here's what I'm telling you about the guy that you told me to watch.
Yeah.
No reply back.
That is an interesting thing, and I think we don't blame the medical system for switching foots or for switching feet or switching tacks because we didn't have all the information. But I think in general, we understand how traditional vaccinations work and we have a long history of them being effective. So that's pretty hard to argue with. But at the same time, I don't think we've talked enough, for example, about the funding that the vaccination companies make. And again, this gets back to my frustration with the new environmentalism, which is really a cash cow is it still a cash cow for the 1%ers? I don't know. But many of our governments are funding these companies, or at least funded them in the first year that these were being put through trials. And so I think I'd like to have that conversation, because how rich does Pfizer become from this? And now that we're actually endorsing boosters, and I'm not doubting that boosters aren't efficacious and do what they're supposed to do, but again, where's the philanthropy on this? Why
isn't that money coming back?
You got it. Why does some company have to make billions?
I don't know which one of the companies, but I seen they did 720 million in like the third quarter of this year.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That money should instantly be. Don't tell me you spent 720 million on fucking research. Yeah. Don't even try and tell me that.
The CEOs, the presidents, and board of directors are.
Not just that. Look at how many people invested in Pfizer or Moderna, invested in these processes at the beginning. And again, why is there a monetary? And I don't mind people making a fair wage and making a living.
No, when it's something that's this good, like for the greater good, and we're so worried about everyone having it, it should be a break-even proposition. Cover your costs, but you shouldn't be fucking making money off this.
And that's kind of my argument with environmentalism. Let's all get on board with environmentalism, but let's make it more philanthropic and let's level the playing.
As soon as I see a for-profit motive, I have to question your ethic. I have to question your motive. And again, going back to my previous statement, I have to view everything you do through the for-profit filter.
Yeah.
All right. So let's end on something good. I got to get out of here. It's time to go Christmas light looking. Okay. Quick question. Being that this is going to be basically my Christmas special will air this Tuesday. Let's talk real quick. Best childhood memory of best childhood memory of Christmas of us three growing up in fucking poverty and mom doing the best she could for us.
Oh, that's interesting.
Well, I know that
give her dinner.
Tree fell on me every fucking year. I know that.
Yeah, no less than 3
year.
times a Christmas tree fell on Dean that I remember.
Yeah. Like literally just sitting there minding my own business, boom, trees down.
You just had to look at it and then fall on you. It's true.
Yeah, I remember once Dad's though, and Dean's literally just laying on the floor, middle of the living room, watch TV. Bam! What the
Remember it.
fuck?
Yep. Didn't touch it or
He
nothing.
was like 5 feet away from it.
Oh, Dino. I agree.
That's why I like to go cut trees down now.
Yeah, my favorite Christmas memory by far is when Duncan the dog ate tinsel. And he had tinsel coming out his ass like a fucking magician's hanky, and Kent had to chase him around and get the tinsel out of his ass.
And when I caught him, you're pulling it out, and you're not just pulling out 1 foot strands, like you're pulling out 6 foot strands coming out of this poor dog's rear end. It's like,
Oh man,
oh yeah,
that was
Crazy.
hilarious.
I don't. Favorite Christmas present we ever got, kind of the materialist side of me, is when we got the Atari. Do you remember that? That was awesome. But favorite.
What about the racetrack? with the
Yeah,
cars?
that was cool too. But it's not a specific memory like that. It's kind of, I think all of us have tried to instill Clarke traditions in us. So for example, how many Christmases did we have where there was a stranger or somebody that didn't have some place to go, or a student from college for one of us, they spent Christmas with us? That's an important tradition. So even this time around, one of Kieran's friends is home alone because his parents flew up to be with family up north in BC. And so this poor kid's alone and he's not vaccinated. I'm told I can't do anything with that, right? I'm told that
bullshit.
Here with that.
You can do it if you want. Fuck them.
Well,
it's kind of funny because in BC, we don't have the quick test kits. We decided not to use them. Whereas in Alberta and Saskatchewan, he can test, half an hour before he comes over and then comes over. But in BC, we're not doing that. And I don't understand that. It's a relatively inexpensive process that we could actually humanize people and not treat them like
lepers.
a machine, right? Yeah, or like lepers.
100%.
But so all that to say that it's those traditions. It's the tradition of welcoming people. It's the tradition of being
I
open.
don't ever remember that happening when we were kids. Did that happen when we were kids?
Yeah, we had people.
No, that was more Kent when he went to university bringing home stray students. That's when it started, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, 'cause I don't recall that ever happening. Maybe I just have a bad memory, but I don't remember sitting at Christmas dinner going, who the fuck is this guy?
No, that's a Kent tradition. That's definitely, but it did start too when Mom would bring home like people from the Sharp Foundation that lived at the hospice and stuff. She would do that. So it is something that definitely, and Kent's always had that, especially since you went away to university, you've always had that kind of open door mentality. You spring it on me more than Dean, though, you fucker.
Yeah, but you guys are my brothers. It's the tradition.
It's tradition. Go stay with my brother, random stranger.
It's okay. They're good.
Yeah,
people.
and then I wake up and that guy's wearing my flesh.
We also did the other thing too, that we did this tradition. So this is a Clarke tradition. We're always allowed to open one present on Christmas Eve. Can't be the big one, but you always get one present Christmas Eve, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
We still
remember
do
doing
that.
Yeah, we do that. Do you guys do that still?
Yep.
It depends.
I
Sometimes
let
I
Matt
kinda-
open one. Yeah.
You bugger, you open all your presents, Jordan, on Christmas Eve, don't you? You bugger.
No, not at all. Not at all. Not at all, because my wife goes mental, so I make her wait.
Christmas Day, right?
Christmas Day, man. I'm not kidding. At Christmas Day, we are the first people up on our block. My wife's out of bed like 5 o'clock Christmas morning.
Dino, most of the presents Christmas Day.
Oh yeah. Yeah. You know what I want to do? I want to go somewhere for Christmas. I'm going to start a new tradition. Get the fuck out of the snow for a week or two.
I'd like to try. We should do a Mexico trip with the Clarke brothers and the wives.
I went to Vegas one year for Christmas. It was awesome.
Was it really?
It was
See, man,
awesome.
you don't have to cook. There's no stress.
Well, and the thing is, Vegas wasn't busy. Do you know what I mean? At Christmas time. By the time 27th, 28th, you're getting close to New Year's, that crowd starts coming in. It got really busy. But yeah, like 22nd, 23rd, 24th, 25th, man, it was awesome.
Huh.
It was really good. We really had a great time. Seeing Jerry Seinfeld.
Literally saw him in person, like went to a show or just saw
Yeah,
him
no, I went to see Jerry Seinfeld. I think it was Christmas Eve.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, man. So yeah, we should plan to do something like that maybe next year.
I would do that.
I'm in.
I do remember, honestly, I do remember our first Christian after mom and dad separated. And I remember there wasn't tons under the tree, but I just remember the four of us and mom, like with mom, the three brothers and mom. I remember her working so hard to actually make that a special occasion. and I can't even remember what was good about it, but I remember that Christmas, the first
Is that
Christmas.
right?
after Mom and- Yeah, it was a good Christmas.
I was,
I was
too,
young.
too young for that, I
Yeah,
think.
you
I
guys
don't know.
were.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. On that note, boys, we're gonna get out of here.
Hey, Merry
Thank you.
Christmas.
Thank you
Merry
so much
Christmas,
for coming
boys.
on, boys. Merry Christmas to you.
All
Love
right.
you
All right.
guys.
Okay, love you guys.
too.
Take care. God bless. We'll chat with you guys on Christmas Day.
You
Hey,
bet.
man.
Okay.
Duke, you suck.
You shut your mouth.